What's going on, guys? This is Kaisho. Welcome back. So we are back with another video. So for our video today, we are going to cover OCG Metagame tier list that is under post BPRO or post burst protocol, and this is also going to be under post YCSJ Nagoya, which is the only big event that we had after the new set of BPRO that was introduced to us last fourth week of October, no? So we are going to consider those two events and happenings that impacted our metagame. Of course, the pre-YCSJ Nagoya and also post-YCSJ Nagoya, how the Nagoya results have impacted the metagame landscape in major regions in Japan. But all in all, this tier list is made to cater the whole OCG land in all aspects. Now, it is going to cover as well the decks that have been performing on minor regions like the sea regions, the Philippines, Indonesia, and all. So I think this is going to be the aftermath of the BPRO and also how the Nagoya have shaped the early remnants of the BPRO format. So obviously we do have S, A, B, C, and D tiers here. We're going to cover each deck on each tier and explain why they are here. And moving on towards our D tier, we do have Mekanko. So Mekanko as a deck is a deck that got supplemented from the new Fallen of White storyline supports. From the new quick play, the Virtus and the Fallen, that card is just massive for a going second deck like Mekanko. And obviously Mekanko have gotten some good results on the Nagoya because it is a BO1 format. So even though the event was BO1, I think it's a major event to consider the metagame that have shaped after that. So Mekanko being a winner of a new support from the Albaz storyline and of course the innate nature of BO1 setting in a tournament, no? It was able to pop off recently and many people have been invested on Mekanko because the deck just is a novelty deck, no? It just surprised people's out of nowhere. I think Mekanko as a deck is a fantastic deck to be that kind of deck, no? Just being able to be the surprise element on your locals, your tournaments, no? Just going to be a hard match up no matter what. So moving on next to the Magnet Warriors. So a lot of my friends have been saying that Magnet Warrior are just a Adamancipator with extra steps. So Adamantia with extra steps. And I cannot blame them because they view this deck. As much as I look into the deck, I think they are probably right. It just uses the amount of extenders, the Koikimeru, the Earthgood stuff, no, the Vernosilf, and other stuff like Winsmith now, which the Adamancipator already have been using from the past couple of formats. And I think Magnet Warrior as a deck is really strong in a sense that it can utilize the Adamancipator, the other Earth supports, and also other engines like the Finsmith. And the goal of the deck is just to go big or go home. That's probably the name of the deck. Just to go big going first, being able to set up Omni Negates on your board, Baron de Fleur, Dragite, and sometimes the Finsmith line. And of course, your ordinary generic negates on the boards, no? And I think Magnet Warrior as a deck really feels fantastic going first. But the problem is just the same as well as the other combo decks. Of course, Maxi, Falls, and Purulia. Even Purulia does give this deck a challenge. So that's probably the biggest factor that you might consider if you wanna run the Magnet Warriors right now. If you're ballsy or bold enough to play around Maxi and Falls, which you don't really have the means to do so when you pick up this deck. You don't have the capacity to be conservative because you don't really run hand traps on the deck anymore. The deck is pure gas. Legitimately, 99% of your deck are just extenders and starters. So probably your only saving grace would be drawing into Maxi, but that's pretty much really unideal, no? Or not really a good amount of chance to withhold when going second and passing your turn under Maxi and Fualas. So it's going to be difficult, but right now the deck impressed me. It definitely surprised people and caught people off guard from the YCSJ. It got tops from the top 132, 64, and 32. So I think it got 4 or 5 results from those topping results or performances. So it was able to do some good damage in this metagame. So all in all, I think is very deserving on a D tier status. Next, we do have Sword Soul. So this is not your Sword Soul Tenyi. This is not the Sword Soul that we got from the previous Bode Burst of Destiny format. This is not your ordinary Sword Soul. This is Sword Soul with Branded, which use the Fallen of White support for the deck. And the goal is just to utilize those cards as your starters. And the one card combo of this deck is really fantastic as well. Going first, you're able to have more one card starters now than your usual Sword Soul line, because Sword Soul obviously does have one card starters like the Emergence, but obviously the deck wants to capitalize on having Wyrm cards on your hand, no, or Sword Soul cards as well from the reveal of the Moye, and also the discard from the Long Yuan. So I think the deck pivoted away from using the Tenyi cards. If they do play the Tenyi cards still right now, they are only playing Vishuda and level 4 tuner of Tenyi, which is only functions as a extender and also an interruption going second. Of course, the Vishuda bounce is also a thing for the deck. But yeah, Sword Soul just got really more consistent and well-rounded, no, being able to cut those Adhara and Ashuna on your deck list, so you're able to fit in more hand traps on the deck. And of course, the branded line is just going to be fantastic, turboing out Synchro 8 on your board, which is Chisao most of the time, no. So yeah, I think very decent deck right now, even though it really lost some momentum on the past few days after the YCSJ Nagoya. It is still a reputable deck from the first 2 days of the new BPRO format. Next, we do have Kultun. So I cannot afford to say the actual name of this deck in this YouTube, because I might get sanctions or huge amount of what do you call this? Yeah, warnings as well. So yeah, let's just call this Gachakuta deck because the art style is very similar towards the very popular anime. So Kultun is a mid-range deck which wants to play the best amount of hand traps possible on the main deck, playing the Gamma package, the Ghost Bell, Ghost Ogre, Ghost Mourner, and literally every tuner hand trap that you can cater on the deck is a tool as well for you to combo off. So the deck uses those tuner hand traps into their advantage, snowballing from those cards. But the only downside is your deck just does not do enough. Yeah, I think the deck is really fantastic. Going first, you are able to put up amount of 3-4 interruptions paired with your hand traps. That really amounts to 7, no, in maximum levels. But turn 0 as well, I think you're able to play. You have turn 0 plays, but yeah, sometimes it just feels lackluster. The deck does not have the amount of explosiveness and amount of absurdity to overwhelm the metagame right now. But yeah, this deck functions as a good mid-range deck. No, if you don't know what to play in this metagame, if you're having thoughts on playing the best decks and you don't want to be scuffled into the side decking patterns of most people, into playing their advantages, of course, against the metagame, no? For example, siding Lancea against Lunalight and Malice, and probably some Orcus there, no? I think you would be better off playing Kultun. This deck has been the only stellar performance deck from the Phantom Revengers, which was a set that many people thought that it's going to change the metagame. Of course, with the Enyecraft and Heck Hands, those two are also good decks, but Enyecraft definitely does not have the amount of consistency and withholding power to withstand the changes and shifts in the metagame, no? So all in all, Kultun is just the only deck that can adapt, because the deck is very spacious and it can literally take any Ghost Sister hand trap into their advantage, like Ogre and Bell, which is fantastic against the best decks right now. Next, we have DDD. I think this deck is one of the most intriguing decks to consider. Yeah, this deck does not perform too much on minor regions, but it does really well on major regions, particularly China and Japan. This deck has been fantastic on those two regions. And the thing with DDD is it's a very difficult deck. I think the combos are not streamlined, is not linear enough to be memorized in a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, even 4 weeks. No, you could be pretty much struggling with the amount of lines and tangibles that this deck can offer. But yeah, it definitely rewards you for memorizing and adapting towards the deck into this metagame. If you built your DDD into a more conservative type of deck where it does not play the extenders that the previous DDD plays, if you play Drolls and Impulse on the deck, it's going to be fantastic because right now DDD is one of the most explosive decks going first. It's been able to put up some major amount of threats going first with the Hiking Caesar, of course, and boss monsters from the own DDD archetype, no? And paired with hand traps like Droll, Impulse, it's going to be fantastic. It's definitely going to answer a lot of top tier decks right now. But yeah, the amount of complexity that this deck can have may be holding back the deck into greener pastures. It's probably a deck that a couple of people can pilot only. It's not a deck that you can introduce to most people and just be fine with it. No, it's not going to be it's not going to happen. I think DDD requires good amount of knowledge and practice for this deck to be able to put up the results that you want. Next, moving on towards the C tier, we do have Tenpai Dragon. So Tenpai, obviously a deck that is evergreen at this point. It was able to withhold the changes in the metagame because the deck literally does the same thing all over again. The deck just aims to go second. The moment that you go second, feels like you almost won the game, no? You don't really care about losing the die roll. Even though you lose the die roll, you're just going to go second and bombard your opponents with breakers, Charmies, Maxi, hand traps, no? Just going to be the name of the game for Tenpai Dragon. And probably this is the reason why they have put Sangen Kaimen into 2 from the previous ban list, because Konami foresaw this might happen. The moment that the metagame might be in peril, no, or in a tight spot, Tenpai Dragon does always have the chance to be a top performing deck because it may adapt their board breaker lineup on the main deck and side deck, and of course the hand trap variants. For example, now they're pretty well off on main decking Meowls because Malice is very popular. So that's another factor to consider on Tenpai Dragon players, no? The moment that they have the chance to main deck the Meowls, of course, they're going to annihilate those Malice matchups, no? So at this point, the deck is very unhealthy. Is a very disgusting deck to play if you put moral standards on the deck, no? The deck is just going to try to break boards going second and go off with one card starters, no? With one card Kaimen and the one card Pydra. It's just going to be immensely powerful once you're able to stop your opponent from playing the game. Next, we do have Ryzeal. So this is very diverse. We do have Ryzeal Mitsurugi, Ryzeal Onomats, even the Ryzeal Spirits, no? I think there's a bunch of Ryzeal decks that are floating around, but it is just congested into one Ryzeal representation in our C tier. So Ryzeal as a deck feels balanced. I think that's the correct term to put into perspective when we talk about Ryzeal. It is very balanced, and Mitsurugi Ryzeal is very powerful, but we put that spectrum on the S tier because Mitsurugi is the predominant engine on that deck now. So Ryzeal, this is just Onomats and other stuff. And I think Ryzeal Onomats is a very balanced deck right now. The only what do you call this, threatening part of the deck was playing off the Musket and having the Feather Storm on your back row. It's just going to be really disgusting to pull off that move. Using the Wing Beast monster on your field, of course, the Featherstorm is always live on your back row and is just going to win so many games for this deck. And all in all, this deck is very consistent and plays a huge amount of hand traps like Retsi, which is fantastic against the best decks, and of course the Mulcharmis, which is also going to be factors for Ryzeal because they can just always use those Charmis on their hand going first as a part of their combo or gameplay, no? So it's also another thing for the Ryzeal being able to utilize Mulcharmis going first, even if they draw those dead cards in general when you play it on turn 1. Next we have Lunalight. So Lunalight has been struggling quite a bit recently. They have been power crept by the newer decks and newly supported decks. And yeah, they are facing the dilemma of struggling because of Lancea and other counter hand traps for the Malice, which hurts the deck as well. The banishing distribution for the metagame is quite immense. We do have the rogue decks like Rescue Ace, no? And stuff like Tri Brigade. Those decks can be stifled with Lancea as well. So, in contrary, of course, they are going to struggle a bit with Lancea. And yeah, literally, I just didn't know what happened in a span of 2 to 4 weeks. I think Lunalight players just got tired. And even though the deck is really strong, no? I think the deck is a good mid-range deck. And Liger Dancer is just so powerful going first. It's a towering monster and a Regeki almost on the board, no? So I think the deck is strong, but it does lack something that I can't describe in few words, no? I think the deck just lacks something, but yeah, it's pretty average and is going to withhold the changes in this metagame. I think even though Lunalight will get more power creep, I think it will able to be here on this tier list for a long period of time. Next we have K9. This is pure K9. So K9 as a pure is very tacky deck. Can play the Emulnir line, can play the Sablaster, can play other various tech cards like the Spell Canceller, and a bunch of really weird tech cards that you might run on K9. As long as it is level 5, no, it will able to be a tech option for the K9. So K9 as a deck feels adequate. I think that's the correct term to put into describing K9 right now. It was able to surprise people with tech options, and also the deck is consistent enough, but it does not have the amount of same consistency that they used to have before, no, with Yokul and Izuna getting banlist nerfs. So I think the deck will probably stay on this metagame as long as the format is not too combusted into high performing, high explosive decks. I think it will be able to be here, but as long as the format will be like the Snake Eyes levels of formats, no, I think the deck will just vanish out of nowhere. I think the slower tempo decks here like the Kultun and the K9 would not be able to survive those amount of explosiveness in this metagame. Next we have VSK9. So surprisingly, people are still not tired of coping with VSK9 because I really do get their side. I think VSK9 is a powerful deck that can express your skill potential in this game. I think it is probably the deck that can give you freedom to play the way you want. It definitely gives you the confidence that you can take anyone and any deck in this metagame as long as you're piloting on your top level on this deck. Yeah, I think this deck is very skill oriented, and even though losing Razen is massive, I think people can compensate it with playing more hand traps and consistency cards. And of course, K9 is still an engine that is a good supplementary engine for Vanquishol. So Vanquishol as a deck right now should be higher on this tier list if I'm just going to curate it towards the post YCSJ Nagoya. But sadly, it didn't perform enough on the first 2 days, and the first few days of the BPRO format. Moving on towards the B tier, we have Odayon. So Odayon is a deck that is export from TCG. It was a deck that is kinda overshadowed in TCG land because of the format. I think TCG has more ceiling and power level rather than the OCG. So Odayon in OCG is a menace. I think Odayon is one of the best decks that you can run if you wanna avoid playing into Maxi and Foalos and Brulia, of course. So this deck is your best bet if you wanna play control in this metagame. Yeah, I think Odayon Eldritch, Odayon Primite, those two are really fantastic decks to play. And Odayon has a way to counter the meta with floodgates and controlling cards, no? It might be able to play the torrential tributes, the needle ceiling, the floodgates, no, skill drain, and those stuff. So it's going to be difficult for a lot of meta decks, especially if they ditch the board breakers and the back row answers. The moment that they have ditched their lightning storms, they're evenly matched, no? I think Odayon can step up their game in this metagame. Next we have Sky Striker. So another very technical deck in this metagame, but all in all, they benefit so much from the Magnifi-Storming or the Radiant Storm, the recently updated Magnifi-Storming name. So Radiant Storm cards on Sky Striker, along with the Virtuous and the Fallen card, is just going to be so massive. I think it just amounts into snowballing potential for Sky Striker. Imagine if they have drawn a Video Anchor, for example, now with Ray as a starter, and the new Albaz Quick Play is going to be really strong going second. And even going first, no? The deck is still really fantastic. Being able to end on like 2 interruptions, sometimes 3. And you get to have quick plays on your back row. It's also a huge amount of threat towards this metagame, especially if they don't have any means to pop those back rows and also answer those quick plays, no? It's going to be very difficult for them. And Sky Striker just gradually increases the ceiling and power level of the deck depending on the pilot. Is a deck that grows with a player. It's definitely a deck that you should pick up if you're really good at this game, if you're confident on your skill level, and if you know what you are doing on Sky Striker, you should probably play the deck. You should definitely go for this deck. Even Yami is more consistent, and Mitsurugi is much more balanced, no? I think if you have the balls and of course the skills to back it up, you should definitely try Sky Striker in this metagame. Next we have Elven Notes. So Elven Notes, many people have thought that this deck would flop because Archmage is a good deck from the Archmage archetype storyline, no? It is a good deck from the first few days of the Duod format, and of course the remainder of the Duod format and the following formats, Archmage is probably a contender deck. Even though Archmage is not here in the tier list, I think it's also a respectable deck right now. And what many people have thought about Elven Notes was the Doomsday, the second line of archetype support for the storyline. Doomsday definitely didn't do anything in this point. At this point, no, it's nothing of spectacular. I think Doomsday definitely lacked something to be able to try to break into this tier list. But yeah, I think it really put an idea in the people's mind that probably, just probably, the Archmage lore is not that strong, no? Or is not going to be a meta-threatening archetype. But many people have been surprised, including me, that Elven Notes, right off the set of the BPRO, was able to be this high already. And I think the deck, as pure as it sounds right now, it plays a good amount of hand traps, playing like 15, 18 hand traps on the deck, and you still have space for Finsmith, and of course the standard Archmage cards, no, with the Medius, the Pure on the deck. So yeah, it was able to be that consistent and that resilient. So it's very scary to think about it, no, being a deck that is explosive and can play ridiculous amount of interruptions, and you still have like 15, 18, sometimes 21 if you ditch the Finsmith. You have those amount of hand traps on the deck and utility cards is going to be massive for Elven Notes. And not only that, the deck just got introduced. So probably it's just going to get more new supports on the following sets. And of course, this is OCG. This is waifu archetype, no? As long as your deck is waifu like Sky Striker, Malice, is going to be getting a lot of supports moving forward. So yeah, it's probably a better investment than Archmage or Doomsday at this point. The moment that this archetype was introduced, many people have been raising eyebrows about the effects of the cards, no? Many people doesn't get the concept of interrupting the opponent using the columns, and of course the potential for this deck to be interactive, very interactive, no? In a sense that this deck is probably the most interactive deck that you can play right now. And I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because it might get too complicated for people to pick up on early stages of the format. But yeah, this is promising, very promising for Elven Notes right now. It's going to be a deck that people are going to consider on the following weeks. And next we have Crystron K9. So Crystron, proven and tested deck. It has won so many events already, from the YOTs, from the big events, and the previous WCQ, WCS tournaments. It has won already many people's heart. And we already know at this point that Crystron is probably the best K9 deck at this point. Cyber Dragon is nowhere to be found. Orcus is nowhere to be found. Vanquishol is just barely holding on. The pure K9 is just literally here for their attendance now in this tier list. But Crystron K9 is a different gravy. I think this deck is ridiculous. The amount of consistency that you have from the K9 and Crystron altogether, utilizing on the level 5s. And of course, the amount of interruptions from the Crystron to be set up on going first is going to be massive, no? And the deck has a lot of rooms for non-engines as well. You can probably play Droplet, Forbidden Droplet, Forbidden Crown on the main deck. And not only that, you can play Crystron with Millennium package as well and Horus. So this is very diverse. I think Crystron is one of the most comfortable decks that you can play. It's going to be a deck that can withhold the changes of metagame, and it has proven themselves all the time, no? Since the previous WCEQ tournaments, it was able to put up some good amount of top cut reps as well. Next, we do have Exisister, probably the most surprising deck out of all of the decks here, but for me, it's not that surprising because I have tested out the deck from their new supports, and the advanced formats results have also lenient towards making Exisister as a tier deck, and this is probably high on some people's standards that EXO is on B here, but I think this deck really outshone everyone on South Korea and Japan. It is probably one of the most represented decks apart from the SA decks on this tier list, no? I think EXO definitely has their numbers to back it up. The deck is consistent, and the deck feels spacious enough. People have also innovated the deck. They have got playing more spirit cards. They have ditched the Sakitama and Aratama. They are just playing the Princess, the Saori Hime, I believe, the level 4 of spirit, only as an extender for the deck, because you don't need to play too much extenders anymore, or Sakitamas, because you have double Tenki on it, and one card Marta, one card Pax are just massive for Exisister, and it's very consistent, and definitely has the means to shut down almost 70-80% of this metagame, no? It would literally die, no? Magnet Warriors, DDD, Lunalight, freaking Elven Nose, they would all die with one shifter, and crack, fissure on your back row, sometimes Macrocosmos on your siding patterns, no? And not only that, of course, you have the engine effects of Exisister to shut down the graveyard. So you literally have the best matchup against the best decks and the tier 3 to tier 4 decks in this metagame, no? So yeah, I think Exisister is definitely a deck that you should consider if you wanna stay in the middle of the pack. If you just wanna play the best, probably fifth best deck in this meta game. If you consider this tier list, so yeah, Exisister definitely on a fantastic spot right now. Next, we do have the A tier. We do have Draco Tail. So Draco Tail with branded is very strong. I think many people have already thought of that the moment that they have seen the deck list of this Draco Tail branded floating around on X and on my previous top 5 decks with most potential. It probably saw some good amount of attention from that moment. And Draco Tail branded is the best deck in terms of conservativeness. If you wanna be conservative enough to play the maximum amount of hand traps, playing Nibiru, Volos on the main deck, and sometimes Droll, no, for example, and you're just going to spend some really few slots on the main deck. Sans the Cartesia, no, you're just going to cut some few cards just to fit in the Fallen of White, and sometimes you don't even need to play the new branded cards. Sometimes Cartesia is just enough. And of course, Draco Tail can be played as pure as well without Cartesia, with more hand traps, and can be played with K9, can be played with Finsmith. And yeah, I think that's the biggest amount of consistency that you can have in this meta game. Even losing Ketu in this build, losing to Ketus is massive, no? But you still have the right amount of consistency and flexibility on the deck to be played under different engines and still have those 15 sweet spot of 15 to 18 hand traps on the main deck now, which is going to be fantastic for a pure deck like Draco Tail. And moving on next to the branded, so probably the biggest winners of the new set of the BPRO, and of course the new structured deck of the Albas Ecclesia Saga. So branded is a deck to look out for right now. It has really paid so much dividends in the past 5-7 days already. I think people have already anticipated it because people definitely loves branded. Is an archetype deck, and also the deck does have the amount of aesthetics on it, no? It has an anime, it has a huge chunk of supports from the past 4 years already. Since Dama, rather Rota, no? The deck was supported all throughout the past few years, and yeah, it's just going to show. Definitely. If you are a deck that is consistently on the meta for 4 years and you're still getting supports after supports, no? It's definitely going to pay dividends on your status as a deck. And right now, branded feels the top of the world. Right now, their last highest ceiling was the 2021, no? Before the PK Adventurer and the PK Prank Kids. And rather, Adventure Prank Kids, no? I think branded with 2 branded fusion and 3 opening, I think it's going to be ridiculous. And not only that, the deck might get more powerful after the Shadow supports, and also the deck is flexible enough to be playing 50, 60 variants with grass and also with Draco Tail cards, no? It's going to be very diverse for branded moving forward. And moving on towards the 8th year with the Mitsurugi. So far, I think people are torn if playing Mitsurugi is the right call to be doing in this metagame, because on paper, Mitsurugi is much more consistent, much more well-rounded, and much more feels complete, no? In a broader aspect where Yami and Malice have been nerfed already from the previous ban list. So I didn't thought that Mitsurugi would be shellacking in terms of Malice and Yami being much more powerful than them. Never thought that it would happen because I saw how powerful the Mitsurugi can be on the TCG before. And obviously, Mitsurugi Yami, Mitsurugi Finsmith, Mitsurugi Ryzel, and all of those Mitsurugi variants are all powerful decks going first, no? they have the right amount of interruptions to be playing, and also the hand traps as well are kinda quantifiable on it, no? 15, 18 slots on the main deck, and of course the pre-prep and the other consistency cards like Prosperity. So yeah, I think the deck feels complete, no? Very complete. But yeah, Malice and Yami just edges them out a little bit in this metagame so far. But yeah, Mitsurugi definitely a deck that you should be playing right now. I mean, if you have seen the developments in this metagame, you would know that Mitsurugi was able to adapt really well from the WPP. And of course, it is also a deck that has proven track record from the TCG land as well. So yeah, I think Mitsurugi definitely is deserving for an S tier status here. Next we have Malice. So the recent winner of the YCSJ Nagoya. And yeah, people have underestimated Malice very far-fetched, no? I think even myself have already underestimated the deck at some point where it lost Appaloosa and yeah, other redeemable cards on the deck, no? They have lost so much, Dormouse into 1, Appaloosa, and probably they would lose more cards on the process. But the sheer amount of consistency that Malice have, and you still have the means to play Impulse, which is Impulse, a massive card in this metagame right now. The moment that you can play Impulse is going to be ridiculous, and the Shifters and the Bestials are also tantamount towards the success of the deck. Of course, shutting down Yami and Mitsurugi with those cards is going to be difficult for Mitsurugi and Yami to be able to keep up as things stands, because yeah, Malice probably the most winning deck at this point, no? You just won the YCS Nagoya, and moving forward, people would be invested into proven decks like Malice. And Malice, probably this is their last spell on this metagame. The moment that they have won the YCSJ Nagoya really spells the end for the deck this coming December ban list. But yeah, it's been a hell of a ride for Malice already. They have been one of the best decks since the last 2 years already. Yeah, 1 year and a half or 2 years already. Is definitely a proven and tested deck at this point. Next, we do have the best deck in this metagame. We do have Yami or Yami Finsmith. So this deck is just more consistent, more well-rounded, and of course, you have the best mid-range deck in the form of the Yami. So Yami Finsmith definitely evolved from the standard Yami, where it just uses the Cupid pitch into the Savage, and now with Finsmith line, they're able to capitalize on 2 bodies on the field. And of course, the link climbing potential of Yami as well can be unprecedented on running the Finsmith engine. And of course, Yami dwells into playing the synchro line of the deck. Of course, the Yami ways. And the deck is kinda, what do you call this? Well-rounded in a sense that it can put up face down interaction, pop, summon, negate, no? It was able to do a lot. I think the Savage and the Arclight are just so massive threats in this metagame, and especially Arclight, because if you play Droplet, imagine that if you play Droplet and you have monsters on your hand, you cannot do that because of the Arclight on their board. And we gotta think of many cards that can out the Yami board, especially with Savage right now, because before playing Pankartaps would be sufficient, no? Considering that you put too much pressure on the board of Yami. But now with Savage and with Finsmith negates, Pankartaps cannot do anything about it unless they are playing into the standard board. But yeah, some cards does not have the amount of impact that they used to have against Yami on the previous formats. And Yami now is very dangerous because the going second of the deck is also good. They can play Forbidden Crown, Forbidden Droplet on the deck, and they still have Purge, and they still have the hand traps, of course, the Falls and Purulia. So they're very strong. I think they just have the best qualities of the best deck right now. That's why they are on the top of this tier list. But it's not too far. I think Malice and Mitsurugi definitely has the saying that they can contend with the number 1 status on this tier list. And also Branded and Draco Tail also has the amount of tangibles that can overtake those 3 decks as well. So all in all, the format is very wide open for a lot of decks to shine. I would not be surprised if Elven Nose would be on A tier later on, or Odion would be spiraling down into D tier. The format is very wide open. The only decks that I can consider being good decks in a sense that they're able to adapt in this metagame would be Tenpai Dragon, Exisister, Draco Tail branded, and those top 3 on the S tier. Those are the only decks that I think can withstand the changes of this metagame due to the qualities that they have as a deck now. So yeah, that sums up our OCG metagame tier list in this post BPRO format and post YCSJ Nagoya. If you found this video informative or helpful, please do consider subscribing. It definitely motivates me a lot to keep providing this content for you guys. So once again, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.